and welcome to Hear These Words, a podcast from Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in Tequesta, Florida. I'm Derek Larson, the Associate Rector here at Good Shepherd.
And I am David Dixon, the Director of Youth and Family Ministries.
And this is sort of a brand new podcast. It's a continuation of a ministry that we've done over the last 2 years here at Good Shepherd called Sunday Ready.
Yep.
And we called that a podcast, but really it was only in video form, so you couldn't listen to the audio of it. But some people shared with us that they were listening to it in the car. And so we thought that we would try this out, continuing what we were doing, but doing it in video and in audio form. So you can now hear us wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever those are. And you can listen on your way to work or wherever it may be.
And you can subscribe to us so that we gain our popularity.
Exactly. And this name change that we've been using the name Sunday Ready, and I don't know the full story where that comes from.
It was just Father Doug and I sat down. We talked about doing the YouTube series, and we just threw around a couple of different names, and the whole idea was just to go over texts that are never really talked about in church on Sunday, outside of the gospel typically, and just kind of review those for the listener so that they kind of have a fuller grasp on all of the readings for Sunday.
Yeah, so when they're in church on Sunday and they're hearing these passages, it's not the first time. They've heard about it, they've thought about it, they've heard discussion about it, so they're ready for Sunday. Right.
Exactly.
So it's a great name. And we've had a great time recording these podcasts.
Right.
But as many of you know, Father Doug has been our rector here at Good Shepherd for the last 5 or 6 years, and he was just elected to be the bishop of the Diocese of Southwest Florida.
Yep.
And one of the things he mentioned is he thought, it would be fun to do Sunday Ready as a bishop in the diocese over there. Right. And so we said, okay, well then, why don't you take the name with you, just in case, and maybe you do that, and we'll come up with something else, and so we came up with this title, Hear These Words, which comes from the Gospel according to Matthew, when Jesus tells the parable of the man who builds his house upon the rock and the foolish man who builds his house on the sand.
Right.
And the passage begins, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a man who builds his house upon the rock. And so that's also kind of the concept of this podcast is we want to hear the words of Jesus, and not only Jesus, but all of the words of Scripture. We want to think deeply about them, critically about them, creatively about them, and put them into practice in our lives so that we can kind of strengthen that foundation of our own living and our own way of engaging the world around us.
Right. And so we come at the text from different perspectives and try to bring some application out for your daily life.
Exactly.
So that's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm.
And one more addition to this new generation or new form of this podcast is that we will have guests. So the last version, Sunday Ready, it was the two of us plus Father Doug, pretty much every week. Sometimes it would be just two of us. Yeah. Sometimes it was three of us. This time we're going to have a guest on basically every week. Next, our first episode our guest is going to be Debbie White, who is a parishioner here at Good Shepherd. She's also the assistant choir coordinator. And every week we'll have a different person on, mostly members from our community, from Good Shepherd. Whether they consider themselves scholars of Scripture or not, everyone has something to say about these passages of Scripture and maybe questions they have, but also how God is speaking to them through it. So we'll have a guest on, and then we'll also be inviting colleagues of yours and mine.
Right.
So other priests, other scholars, clergy around the nation to share with us a little bit more about their perspective, so that we hear more voices than just our immediate community, but also in the wider community.
Right, exactly. So everyone can think theologically. It doesn't matter if you've gone to seminary or not, or have done any real formal training. in biblical scholarship. We think theologically every day, really. So that's part of the point of the whole podcast and show, is to allow people to become more comfortable with thinking theologically about the text.
Exactly. So I'm really excited about this new version of the podcast, Hear These Words, and we hope that you'll join us every week. Now that we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all of these different podcast platforms, we encourage you to subscribe. Absolutely. So that you can be sure to never miss an episode, and there's also an opportunity to rate and review. Mm-hmm. And the more that you do that, the more people will be able to find this podcast. Right. So our main goal is that this is for our Good Shepherd community, but it can also be for anyone. It can be for your friends and neighbors. It can be for people around the world. So we encourage you to subscribe and rate and review. Yeah. And we're looking forward to coming together and hearing these words of Scripture together.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
So we'll see you soon on Tuesday, and hope to see you participating then.
Absolutely.
See ya. Bye.